which is makeup tips and tricks for the mature woman. Before we start, I'd like to take just a moment. Let me get this off my screen there. I'd like to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about the history of NKA, or New Knowledge Adventures. Over 15 years ago, a group of volunteers got together in Pocatello, along with Idaho State University, with a desire to establish a program of lifelong learning in their area. They looked at quite a few different models, and their main criteria were that the program have affordable access, that it be run by volunteers, and that the courses be taught by volunteers. They wanted to engage both the community and their membership to provide diverse, high-quality educational classes and experiences, and to have fun. So NKA was born. In 2014, AARP Idaho and Idaho State University Meridian, along with the Treasure Valley YMCA, joined or put together a partnership to bring NKA to our area. There have been a few changes in the last few years. The YMCA is no longer a partner, and in the fall of 2020, NKA went to a virtual platform to offer classrooms because of the pandemic. This semester, which is fall 2021, we continue to offer all of our classes online via Zoom. And we do eventually want to return to a model where we can have some classes in person and some classes online. But we've learned a lot in the last year and a half or so. And we've learned that there are some advantages to having virtual classes. For instance, people from all over the state, even all over the country, can take our classes, can access our classes since they're on a virtual platform. And another advantage is that the classes can be recorded. In fact, this class is one that is going to be recorded. Then if you're interested in seeing some of the classes that we've done in the past, if you go to YouTube and type in New Knowledge Adventures Idaho, you'll be able to see those classes that have been recorded from past semesters. We're just getting started with this semester. We're only, I think this is the third class of the semester. But I want to again repeat that NKA is run by volunteers. We really appreciate all the instructors that volunteer their time and their expertise to share their knowledge with us. And NKA is run by committees composed of volunteers that help things run smoothly. So if you'd like to volunteer to help with NKA, or if you have an idea for a class, I will put in the contact person's name, Kathy McDougall, and her email address in our chat box so that you can contact her. We always welcome new people and new ideas, so do think about volunteering for NKA. All right, before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping, or house rules, whatever you want to call them. Participants can leave at any time. And if you need to leave the class early, you'll take your cursor down to the bottom of your screen, and there will be a leave button that you just tap on to leave the session. Also, all the microphones will be muted except for our presenter. If you want to ask a question during this presentation, you'll use your chat box. And to do that, in case it's new for some of you, you'll take your cursor again to the bottom of the screen, and you'll see a little icon or a little symbol that looks like a word bubble. When you click on that, it opens up a window and you can type in your question. Then we'll take several breaks throughout our presentation to look at the questions that have been posed in the chat box at that point. And one last thing, if you're going to be moving around during the presentation, I know sometimes people will be watching on their phone or on their tablet, and they will be walking around in their house or whatever. If you're going to be doing that or moving around, please do turn off your camera. And again, you go to the bottom of the screen, at least on my screen, in the lower left-hand corner, there's a little stop video icon. Click on that to turn off the video, because if there's movement other than from our presenter, it is kind of distracting. All right, let me introduce our presenter today. Her name is Kay Davis. Kay is a graduate of the ISU School of Cosmetology, and she's currently working as a hair and makeup artist for photography and weddings, other special events. She entered the beauty industry to encourage women to embrace their uniqueness and to enhance their self-confidence. Kay offers educational opportunities to schools and organizations to teach women how to maintain a youthful glow. Boy, could I use that now. To create everyday makeup looks that flatter their faces and features, but also complement who they are as a person. So let's please welcome Kay. Good morning, Kay.
Good morning, everybody. It's so good to have such a turnout. Thank you for taking the class today. As Carol was saying, my name is Kay Davis, and I am a hair and makeup artist here in Pocatello, Idaho. So if there's anyone in our area who wants to take additional classes or needs to get a hold of me for any reason, I can leave my contact information at the end of this. I have been doing hair and makeup since I could hold a brush in my hands. My lovely brother was the torture subject for me. Every day we had a new wig and a new dress and a new makeup look. So I definitely owe my success to him. So thank you to him. Today, my main goal is to ignite a little spark within you and just get you really excited to go out and show off your look. My main goal here is to enhance the beauty that is already there. I'm not one of those makeup artists that likes to just plaster makeup on your face and turn you into a totally different person. This is all about just enhancing what you already have. So if that's what you're looking for, you're in the right place. And I want to start with just a little umbrella for skincare and nutrition. It's not something I'm going to go crazy with. It's just going to be a really, really fast thing here. But skincare and nutrition is extremely important, and no amount of makeup in the entire world is going to cover bad skin. So you want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself first. So take your vitamins every day and wear your sunscreen, and of course, drink your weight in water, or at least 8 glasses or so, just to keep everything nice and hydrated. Water also goes in and rejuvenates those cells, so it'll give you that youthful glow that Carol was talking about. And when you are looking for sunscreen, I just ask that you look for a broad spectrum sunscreen. And that is a sunscreen that covers UVA rays and UVB rays from the sun. That's extremely important. The UVA rays are considered aging rays. They're the ones that really break down the collagen and elastin in your skin. And the UVB rays are considered burning rays, where you get like a little bit dry, leathery skin. So make sure you have something to cover those aspects. And then I have just a couple of notes before we start. And the first one is that makeup has no rules. There are no limitations, but there is a theory. So today I'm just going to go over an overview of that theory, and so that you can grow and just have fun with it. The second thing is to have fun. The best thing about makeup is that you can do crazy things. You can have a lot of fun with it. If you don't like it, you can always wipe it off. So don't be afraid to play and just have a good time with it. I do have one pro tip for you, and that is to tap your makeup into your skin rather than rub it into your skin. This is going to be for your foundation and your eyeshadow. If you tap product into your skin, it's going to give you that nice, beautiful, flawless finish. It's also going to give you the most pigment payoff. So that's a big one. And then lastly, it's important to keep your creams with creams and your powders with powders. Usually you would start with a cream application and then build your powders on top of it. If you go back and forth between, let's say, a cream foundation and a powder foundation and just move back and forth between those products, you're going to see a lot of muddiness, a lot of uneven skin tones, and your makeup will wash or come off in little splotches and stuff throughout the day. So just keep that in mind as you're going as well. So to the good stuff, why we're actually here. And that is for the actual makeup application. So before you ever put your makeup on, you're going to start with a light daily moisturizer. So you're going to clean your skin really good. You're going to apply your moisturizer, and then of course your broad spectrum sunscreen. And I do recommend that you let that sit on your face for about 10 minutes before you ever apply any of your makeup. The reason being, your skin needs ample time to take that product and really let it sink into the pores. Your moisturizer and your sunscreen is oil-based, and if there's one thing we know about oil, it's that it breaks down makeup. So give yourself about 10 minutes afterwards, go grab yourself a cup of coffee, go eat breakfast, just give yourself plenty of time for that to sink into your skin. All righty, and then once you've waited about 10 minutes or so after applying your sunscreen and your moisturizer, you're going to go in with a primer. And primers, people kind of go back and forth on whether they are something that you definitely should have or something that's not really necessary. I highly recommend anyone 50 and above specifically to apply a primer. The beautiful thing about a primer is it goes in and smooths out the fine lines and wrinkles that you may be having. It covers in those pores and it creates a really smooth semi-tacky surface for your makeup to sit on. So I highly recommend using one of those. And a little bit really does go a long way. For example, with my primer, this is all I need for my entire face, and that's even a little bit extra. That would be enough to put on my neck as well. So just a little bit goes a long, long, long way. I also recommend getting yourself an eyeshadow primer. The eyeshadow primer does the same thing. It fills in those pores and it gives you a nice blank canvas to start with. If your lids are naturally very oily, so we need something that contains an oil blocker to go in and block all of that so that your makeup lasts throughout the day. So that's why I highly recommend those products. It's also important to remember that not everyone's skin is the same. We have oily skin type, dry skin type, and combination skin. So we need to make sure that we're using the correct primers for those skin types. Oily skin primers contain oil blocking ingredients, which stop your natural oils from breaking down the makeup over time. So make sure when you're buying your primers, it says right on the side of it for oily skin types, okay? And then for dry skin, they also contain those oil blockers so that it doesn't break down over time, but it has a more hydrating and moisturizing base and will create a barrier between your face and your makeup and lock that moisture in all day long. If you're somebody with combination skin, you can also buy one of each primer. And usually if you're combination, you're pretty oily here in your T-zone area. So you would apply the oily skin tone primer here down that T-zone. And then on the outer, you would apply your dry primer. Okay, and then when it comes to that, you can apply the primer in a couple of different ways. If you have nice clean hands, make sure your hands are sanitized because they do have a lot of bacteria and a lot of oils on your hands. So make sure those are washed up really well. And you can just take that primer and just use an upwards motion and just really work it into the skin. Or you could use a flat foundation brush just like this, and you can just rub it right into the skin. Okay, so now that your skin is primed and ready to go, where do you start? Do you start with foundation or do you start with eyeshadow? The answer to this question is really up to you. Everyone does it a little bit differently. There's not really a right or wrong way. I prefer to do my eyeshadow first because of fallout. I think we've all been there. You do a nice, beautiful base of your makeup. Everything looks flawless and perfect. Then you go in and you do your eyeshadow. Sheena's like, yes. And you have just all of this fallout down here and it gets really muddy and it looks like somebody punched you in the eye. So in order to get rid of all of that and all of those issues there, I just go ahead and prime my skin and then do my eyeshadow first. The brushes that I recommend, let me pull those out for you. Now, I do recommend highly getting yourself a set of eyeshadow brushes. I know that CoverGirl and Maybelline, they have those little applicator sponges in there. I don't recommend using those because they do create harsh lines as you're applying the makeup. And we want something that's really diffused, something really soft. And the only way to really get that is through the use of these brushes. The first brush that I want to go over is your blending brush. You want to keep this brush nice and clean. And if you notice, it's very, very soft. The bristles are pretty long. And there's just a lot of movement here, and that's going to create the perfect blend for your eyeshadow. The next one is going to be a crease brush. You'll notice that this one is a little bit closer together, a little bit shorter bristles and much more dense. And then we have a smaller detail brush. This one is about the same size as the crease brush, maybe a little bit lighter, not quite as dense. And that's just the perfect shape to just go in here and contour the outer corner of your eyelid. The last one is a small detail brush, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. This one is for applying lipstick, but I find that it is absolutely perfect to go underneath your waterline here and just bring that makeup down a little bit. If you put it underneath your waterline, it just adds a really beautiful transition and an extra pop of color. So you can use unconventional tools. Just because it says it's a lipstick brush doesn't mean it's a lipstick brush. If it works for you, absolutely use it. Alrighty, so eyeshadows are a fantastic tool. They can be used to enhance eye color and really make or break your entire look. I do recommend avoiding any kind of blue eyeshadows or anything with extreme sparkle. Anything with sparkle is going to really settle into any fine lines and wrinkles, and it will really enhance them. So I recommend using something a little bit more matte just to make everything look nice and soft. Another note I want to put on for your brushes is how to hold them, because believe it or not, it's extremely important on where your hands are when you're using the brush. For example, if I hold the brush this close, so this part right here is called a ferrule. This is what holds the bristles of the brush, right? So if you hear me say ferrule, this is what I'm talking about, is the silver piece. So if my hands are on the ferrule and it's super, super close, I'm going to be able to apply more pressure, which means I get more of a pigment payoff. However, it's not easy to go in and blend that if I'm that close. So you move your hand to the back of the brush where you have less pressure and you can get a nice blend. So I kind of wanted to show you a little example of that, if you don't mind. Okay, so I'm going to pick up just a little bit of product here, and I'm going to hold my hand close to the ferrule of that brush. And I'm trying really hard to blend, but you can see it's kind of just, I have dark spots here and then light spots here, and just, it's really, really uneven. But if you go in and hold your brush at the bottom, this is really hard to do, sorry, and just go in circular motions, it's much more even of a blend, and I can really build that line out and diffuse it. So keep in mind where you're holding your brush. It really does make a huge difference. Okay, and then another note for you is to apply the eyeshadow at an upwards diagonal. If we go out from the eye and we're just going straight out, it's going to drag your eyes down. It's going to make them look like they're droopy, and it'll make you look tired. So in order to counteract that, what I do is I can just place my brush here on my nose, and you see this line that just goes straight up. That's the line that I'm going to follow to do my eyeshadow, to give a nice youthful uplifted effect to the eyes. And it also has a slimming effect at the same time. So just straight over, just like that. I also recommend using a highlighter on the inner corner of your eyes. This is where my cool little lipstick brush comes in. You can just take a little bit of that light color and just pop it right here in the inner corner. That's going to brighten up that area, and it'll reflect off of your eye color and really pop it open, especially if you're on camera, taking family photos, anything like that. I also recommend taking that highlighter and right here by your arch, just the last third of your brow bone, if you tap in just a little bit of highlighter here in that area, it also adds that pop, and it has a nice lift so that your eyes look more awake and more open. Now, if you're someone who really, really loves your eyes, they're your best attribute, and you really want to show them off, I do have a couple of tips for you on colors that you can use to really enhance them. And I think you all got a worksheet. Is that correct? That kind of shows you that? Yes. Okay, perfect. So blue eyes, you're going to want to use earthly tones such as browns, rusts, rose golds, and golds. Those will really make your blue eyes pop. They're opposite blue on the color wheel, which is what makes them really, really stand out from across the room. If you are someone with green or hazel eyes, of course, you can still use the neutrals and browns. That will still look good. But if you really want it to pop, you can use colors like purples, plums, and even pinks. And that will give you a little bit of an elevation there. Now, if you're someone with brown eyes, you are very, very lucky because brown eyes can literally pull off anything. The eye color is already neutral, so you can mix and match different colors and make them look really, really good. Okay, so now that you've applied the eyeshadow, sorry, let me get my notes together here. Once you apply your eyeshadow, again, you might have a little bit of fallout here in this area. Fallout is caused by picking up too much product with your brush. Your brush just can't handle it, so it falls out onto your cheek. So for one, less is more with your product. Start with a little bit and then build it up. Just as if you were painting a painting, you start with the lighter color and then you build from there. If you do happen to get fallout, however, you can take a little bit of that primer that you used earlier, put a little bit on your finger and just swipe it away. That primer will take it right off. Okay, does anybody have any questions so far?
Well, there is one question. Oh, here we go. There was a question about concealer that I believe you're going to talk about later, but here's one that was just typed in. It says, I've heard some older women say they no longer use powder eyeshadow because of irritation or not wanting to look overdone with makeup. Do you have any opinions on the use of eyeshadow for seniors?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So cream eyeshadows are a fantastic tool. The only downside to cream eyeshadows is a lot of times they have a lot of sparkle and glitter in them, and that's definitely something you want to avoid. However, if you find something that just has very, very little shimmer or something that's more matte, that's a wonderful option for you. Another great thing about those cream eyeshadows is you can simply use your ring finger and just tap that color right in and just have a nice, beautiful blend that way. And the cream eyeshadows usually don't have a lot of pigment payoff. So if you're looking for just a really light and airy look, that's a beautiful option for you.
Okay, there is one other question that just came in. What face primers can we get from the store? And I assume she means drugstore or maybe via Amazon. Name some. And I don't know if you can name brands or not, but
so if we're looking for more of a lower end, something a little more affordable, Pharmacy has a really good option. This is what it looks like. This is what I use every single day. It is an MLM company. Some people like them, some people don't. But NYX Cosmetics also has a really good primer that I highly recommend. I believe it's like $9. You can buy it at Ulta and I believe Walgreens. So you could try either one of those.
All right, that's it for the questions so far.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to go into concealer now and color correctors. So concealers you can apply with a damp beauty blender or a clean ring finger. And why I chose the ring finger is this is the weakest finger in your hand. And especially when you're working underneath your eyes, this is the thinnest skin that you have on your body. It's very, very delicate and can be easily damaged. So we want to make sure that we're not pulling, we're not tugging in that area that really can break down the elastin and collagen underneath the eyes and start to make them droop. That's where you get bags and things like that. So you can just lightly tap any product underneath with your ring finger if you're working underneath the eyes. Now, when it comes to a beauty blender, this is what they look like. It's just a sponge. You can get them at any drugstore, Ulta, online on Amazon. and they're best used when they're a little bit damp. So I always get mine really, really wet, and then take a towel, get out the excess moisture, and use that to tap the concealer or color correctors into the skin. If you're like me and you struggle with dark circles underneath your eyes, I do have a color correcting tip for you. If you are fair skinned, such as myself, you can use a peach concealer, and that peach concealer, you'll just use one very small dot right in the center of where you have the darkest color pigment, and just tap it in with your ring finger. And what it'll do is it will counteract and kind of change the color and brighten up underneath your eyes. And then if you're someone with a little bit darker of a skin tone, you can use an orange, and that orange will also go through and counteract any of those blues or purples that you have underneath, because all that is just a pooling of blood underneath your eyes. So we just have to counteract that color. If you're someone who struggles with rosacea or any kind of redness in your face, you can also use a green concealer or a green CC cream before you ever apply your foundation. So you're going to apply your primer, and then any place that you have extreme redness, age spots, anything like that, then you can go ahead and just tap that into the skin using a beauty blender before you apply your foundation. And then that will color correct it and kind of do a trick of the light, if that makes sense. Okay. Let's see. And then to highlight or conceal, you can use the concealer for that, of course. I would recommend, if you have any acne spots or any age spots that you just haven't been able to cover up in the color correcting process, you would apply your foundation first, and then just use that concealer a little bit at a time and just build it up in those areas that you're having some struggles with. And I would just use a concealer that's the same tone and same color as your foundation, just so you have that nice seamless blend. Okay, and then once you finish your color corrector underneath your eyes, we need to go in and make sure that that matches your foundation. That's where you're going to get your concealer that's the same color as your foundation. And you're going to pop it into your outer corners. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to pull up a graphic for you. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
No, we can't
No?
at this point.
Okay, let me try again. Can you see it now?
It looks like it says you've started screen. Oh, yes, it's on now. Great.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this right here is the placement of your concealer that's going to match your foundation. So this is going to be after you applied your color corrector underneath your eyes, if needed. You're going to just apply 2 small dots on the outer corner of your eye, and then 1 dot right where your glasses would normally sit. Usually there's a little bit of discoloration here as well. And then you're going to use your ring finger to tap that product into the skin and blend it out. So let me get back on here. Okay, so you're going to apply those 3 dots here, here, and here. Use your ring finger. The ring finger is going to use your body heat to melt the concealer into your face so that it doesn't settle into fine lines or wrinkles. And you're just going to tap it very softly. You're going to concentrate most of the product out towards this way. And then when it starts running a little bit lower on product, that's when you go underneath here and kind of connect these dots here. You don't want to use too much product underneath your eyes. Again, it's a very delicate area, so a little bit really goes a long way. If you use too much, it settles into those pores, it weighs it down, it starts to mess with the elastin and collagen underneath your eyes and will accentuate those fine lines. And then I always go back with my beauty blender. The beautiful thing about the beauty blender is that it picks up any excess product that you don't necessarily need. So rather than it settling into those fine lines, we can just pick it up with this, okay? And what I like to do is there is a product called setting spray. This is what I set my makeup with every day. And we'll go over this a little bit more at the end. But I take a little bit of my setting spray, and I just spray it right onto my beauty blender after I've done my color corrector and my concealer. And then to set it and make sure that it doesn't settle into any fine lines, you're just going to tap it in, and it's going to pick up all of the excess product, and it'll push that product right into the pores so it doesn't settle. Okay, and then I have heard in the past, there was a rumor going around that you take a concealer that's 2 shades lighter than your actual foundation to give that brightness and stuff underneath your eyes. I don't recommend that because you can tell that there's a really, really bright spot right here. It's extremely distracting when you're on camera. It's extremely distracting in person. So that's why I say to grab a concealer that does match your foundation, just to avoid that. You don't need one lighter because we've already talked about color correcting. And once you color correct under your eyes, it brightens it up for you. Okay. How are we doing so far? Do we have any questions so far?
Yeah, we do. One is about concealer, but let me go back to one that came up at the very end of your eyeshadow section.
Okay.
It says, how do you apply eyeshadows? The diagram says 1. So I'm assuming, well, you probably can't see it on mine, but I'm assuming maybe they're talking about the diagram where the 1 is in the inner corner.
Okay, so let me pull up that diagram really quickly. I apologize, I'm putting you on a little roller coaster. Is this the graphic that we're talking about here, the eyeshadow tips?
I'm assuming so. Julie had asked the question, and it says, the diagram says 1, so I'm assuming that's the area she means.
Okay, so what I would do when applying your eyeshadow is you would apply your primer as normal, and then you can take a color for your first color with your fluffy blending brush. And I recommend using one that is close to your skin tone. So like this one, if you can see the Magnolia, and you're going to put it all over your lid. That's going to be your very first step. That's going to allow for easier transition in between the colors. And then you would go in with your crease, which is number 4. That's going to be one of the lightest colors that you use. And you're going to apply it just here, right above the crease and a little bit below with your crease brush. And then take your blending brush, holding it at the end and diffusing that line using circular motions. And then you can go in with number 3, which is going to be kind of your contour portion here. That's going to be your darkest color, and then fade it in to 2 and 1. Now the spot for 1, that's the spot that I was talking about earlier, that I recommend you take a little bit of a highlighter and you just use a light color right there to give it that pop so that your eyes look more open and awake. Does that make sense?
Okay, Julie, if that did not answer your question, if you can use the chat box to kind of clarify what you were asking. If not, I'll go on to our next question. It says, I've heard that for older women, less is more when it comes to makeup. If so, what tips are must-dos to look your best?
Yes, less is definitely more. And the best tip that I have is if you are someone who feels like you need to wear foundation, you can concentrate those onto specific areas of the face. For example, down your T-zone, the T-zone is this line straight down your face and then across your cheeks. So if you're going to apply your foundation, you just take a little bit goes a long way, and you just tap it into the T-zone and then spread it out from there. You're not going to want to do a big amount of makeup around here. Is that what you're asking? Did I answer that?
If that was not what you were asking, then if you can just elaborate, or apparently that was what she was asking. I don't see anything else, and that is the last thing in the chat box. So I think we're ready to move on.
Beautiful. Okay, so now we are going to move into the actual foundation application. And my biggest favor that I have for you folks, please don't use your hands. I know a lot of women do because it's one less thing that you have to buy and they think that it's super, super quick. But when you use your hands, for one, our hands are full of oil and bacteria. So you're introducing all of those things to your face, which can cause all sorts of issues. On top of that, you also get a lot of lines, and you can especially see it right here in the jawbone and here in the hairline. So I like to use a foundation brush, and I'll go over these brushes really quickly because you have a couple different options that you can use. Okay, so this one is my favorite foundation brush. This is a Morphe brush. I like Morphe because they're extremely affordable and they're really good brushes. So if you need a new brush set, they even have a beginner set on their website. You can also buy them at Ulta, but if you buy them directly from Morphe, they give you a little bit of a discount. So if that's something that you need, this is the E31 brush. It's nice and flat on top, super dense brush bristles, but also very, very soft. So with this brush, if you were to apply your foundation with this, you would again go to your T-zone, which is straight down and across here. And you're going to start by applying just a little bit of product at a time. For example, a little bit of product is that much. It's just a tiny little pea-sized amount. You don't need a lot. If you need more, you can add more, but the biggest mistake you can make is adding too much at once, and then it settles into those fine lines and really, really pushes them out. So start with a little bit. I always start on my forehead and I just tap it in. Again, going back to the beginning of this class, you always want to tap the product into the skin instead of rubbing it. If I was to go in and rub it, I would have a lot of harsh lines and there would be inconsistencies in the pigment. So you would just tap it in to these main spots here and here. And then once you start running out of product, then you can start going towards your hairline and your jawline. We don't want all of the product really concentrated here because you will have a really harsh line. Whereas if we go into it with just a small amount of product, it will eliminate that problem. Then I always like to go back in with my beauty blender. I am getting to the point where I'm starting to get a couple little lines right here that I'm trying to hide. So I always go back in with this just to pick up that excess product and blend everything in. The beautiful thing about this beauty blender is that it pushes that right into the skin and again picks up the excess. So go in with a flat brush and then just go back and tap it in and pick up the excess. Another option that you have is a flat foundation brush. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do not love this brush. I feel like you have to use a lot more product, which wastes a lot more money. The effect, you usually have to kind of drag this brush in order to get it to the places that you want, which is where you get the inconsistencies in the makeup. So you can use it. If you do use it, I would definitely pair it with the beauty blender, and I would only use this, you know, just in the main T-zone parts, and then blend everything out with this from there so that it doesn't settle into those lines. Okay, let me see.
Okay, before you move on, there's several questions about brushes, so this might be the best time to pose those. First one is, how often should brushes be replaced?
So replaced or cleaned? If you're taking really,
that's a question that is later.
Okay.
So let's do replacement first.
Okay, so as far as replacement, when your bristles start falling out of your brush, it's time to replace them. Sometimes I find that I like to reuse my brushes once the bristles start losing because it's good for other areas. So I will always use my brushes as long as I can. I still have brushes from, 15 years ago that I'm still using. So as long as you take care of them and you clean them properly, they should last you a long time.
Okay, and that's a perfect segue into the other question. How often do you wash your brushes, daily or otherwise, and what do you use to wash them?
Perfect question. So my beauty blender gets washed every single day before every application. It is a sponge, which means it's porous, and so it will trap in germs and bacteria. So I like to use this I like to wash it every day before. Again, it has to be a little bit damp before you start, so you can just wash it right before you begin and then wipe it down with a towel. I always wash mine with Dawn dish soap. It takes away the grease, it kills the bacteria, and it's super quick. Now for brushes, they do recommend that you wash them once a week. That I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't do that. In between my clients, I clean my brushes between every single client. But when it comes to my personal brushes, I always do it at the first of the month so that I know, okay, it's the first of the month, I need to wash all of these and then continue on. I do wash those with a mild shampoo. These are hairs on here, so we need to make sure they're nice and hydrated. We don't want to dry them out. If you use Dawn dish soap on them or anything like that, it's too hard and it will break down the brush over time. And so I always use a good shampoo, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy, just any kind of hydrating shampoo from the store. You can even go to the dollar store and get one of theirs from that. Also, when you are cleaning your brushes, make sure that they're either laying flat on a table as they're drying or they're upside down. If you put them back right side up, like when you usually store them, that water is going to get into this furrow and it'll break down that glue and your brush won't last very long. So make sure they're nice and flat or even upside down. That's your best option.
All right, that's it for the questions so far. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All righty. I do recommend getting yourself color matched for foundation with a professional. If you can't get to a professional, I can give you a couple of tips on how you can do that. When you are color matching your foundation, you're going to pick a couple of different shades, and I want you to get in front of natural light. I want you to get in front of a window, even walk outside, just get the most natural light that you can get. And then you're going to take the product and start here on the jawline and go down to your neck. We're looking for a color that blends right into the neck. Your face and your neck will never be the same color because where the sun hits it is always inconsistent, right? But we want to make sure that the neck, we don't want to put a ton of makeup down here. We want it to blend seamlessly. So just make sure it matches that. If it does, you're good to go. So just draw that line and then just kind of rub it in and keep looking until you find that color. I do recommend that you don't go to a place that has fluorescent lighting and color matches under fluorescent lighting, because fluorescent lights push out a lot of orange light and it will make you look orange when you're in their chair. So it may look perfect under fluorescent lighting and it may be your color, but you're going to find that you're going to walk outside and you're going to be orange like a pumpkin, because that's just the way that it works. So make sure that you're doing it in the natural lighting. If you do go to a store and they try to color match you under the fluorescent lighting, it's okay to ask them to bring you to a window so that you can be color matched better. That is totally okay. Okay, and then this part I actually had entered in with when dealing with mature skin, you want to use less is more. So we kind of go back to that question that we had earlier, concentrated on the T-zone and going out with the foundation. I think I kind of covered all of that a little bit earlier, so I think we'll just move on from there. Powders are kind of a controversial thing for anyone with dry skin. In the past, we've been told that because we have dry skin, we can't use powders. I don't love that approach. I find that powders really set the makeup and make them last all day long. So if you are like me and you have dry skin, I would just look for a powder that is compact rather than a powder that is loose. If you use a loose powder, then it will settle into those fine lines and create a lot of texture. Now, if you're someone who has an oily skin type, you can get away with those loose powders. But for everyone else, I do recommend more of a compact powder. And with that, you're going to apply it with a fluffy brush. This is the perfect brush. It's super dense, but it's still very, very soft. If you have a brush that has too much density, that's where you're going to get inconsistencies in your color, and you'll be able to see little round spots where you pushed into the skin. So Something like this would be great. This one is an Isabella Scott brush. And you're going to apply it just like you did with your foundation. So you're going to start with your T-zone, and then you're going to work your way out a little bit at a time. You do not want a lot of powder, whether you have oily skin or whether you have dry skin. Very minimal powder, just enough to set it. So you're going to swish it around in your powder, and you're going to tap it into the skin. We're not rubbing it. Tap it into those areas specifically that you usually find you touch your face. So for example, if I'm in the salon, I do this a lot. If I'm sitting in front of a computer, I do this a lot. So I want to make sure that I'm hitting those areas with the powder. So I'll just tap it in. Once it's tapped into the T-zone, then you can move your hand down the brush and buff it in circular motions, and then that'll just take any of the excess that you had here and move it to the outer corners of the jawline and the hairline. And then I even go into my hairline just a tiny bit, just to make sure there's not a line around in that area, if that makes sense. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any questions so far? You still there?
Not at this point.
Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to move on.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just one last little quick thing here.
Of course.
Can you please share a list of the must-have brushes? Maybe you have that, or we can do it at the end, but it's just a few brushes that we talked through so far.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can do that. I really recommend doing the beginner set that Morphe has on their website. I think it just says beginner brush right on there. Again, definitely go onto Morphe website so you can get that discount from buying right from them.
And Kay, yeah, that question unfortunately was posed right after I said there were no questions. How do you spell Morphe? And I'll put that information in the chat box.
Yes, so Morphe is M-O-R-P-H-E.
Okay, I will type that and send it. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. So your must-have brushes are going to be a foundation brush. You can kind of choose whether you want to try this flat foundation brush or whether you want to do, or excuse me, the round foundation brush, or whether you want to do the flat foundation brush. A beauty blender is a must-have. I recommend that every single person here gets one. The ones that you can get from, let's say, Walmart or Smith's, they are pretty dense. They're kind of harder sponges, so I don't love to use them. The Beauty Blender brand is the best. They are $20 a sponge though, so you can just kind of decide what you want to do. If it's something that you want to try and just see if you like it before you spend the money on it, you can definitely go to Walmart and grab one of those. Another option is Pharmacy. They have one as well that honestly is even better than the Beauty Blender. I love it, and I think it's $4 or something. So that's definitely a must-have. Another must-have is a fluffy brush for your powder or your blush, and then at least do a blending brush for your eyeshadow, a crease brush, and a detail brush. Those are going to be your absolute must-haves. And I don't know, Carol, if you want to put this in the chat. This brush is kind of harder to find, but it is the one that I highly recommend for foundation. This is a Morphe brush, but it's the E as in Edward 31 brush. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to go into contour, bronzer, blush, and highlighter. This is kind of back to the less is more. We're not going to want to build up these products like crazy. Contour isn't something that I would recommend for daily going out life. Just a simple blush and maybe a small amount of bronzer is what I would recommend for daily. If you're going out and you're taking some photos, or if you're going to be on a Zoom meeting or something like that, then you can do contour, and that's just going to really sculpt your face. It'll slim everything down, and just make your face pop in those photos. So it is important to know that daily makeup and photography makeup are very, very different things. When it comes to photography or being on camera, you will use more product than you would normally use on a day-to-day, and you would enhance that bronzer and that blush even more to be on camera. So we can go over that a little bit later too, if you would like. And we do have a worksheet here. So I will pull that up in just a second. I'm just going to pull out the brushes that you need for this. The first one I have is an angled brush. If you notice, it starts small here and then has a little angle at the top. If you are someone who's doing contour or bronzer, this is what I use for my contour, my bronzer, and my blush. But I do want to show you that there is a right and wrong way to use this. So with this brush, because of this point here, when you're applying your makeup, it pushes it down. So for example, if I was to hold the brush with the point here by my ear and go down with my bronzer, it's going to flick that excess product down here and create a beard. So if you flip it and you have the pointed side down and you go up, we're not giving ourselves any beards. So that's a huge tip. Just go up with it, with your angle down. So far, so good? All right, perfect. Okay, and then if you are doing your highlighter, I recommend a fan brush. This brush has very few bristles in the top. They're pretty spaced out and it's super soft. I recommend this because a little bit of highlighter goes a really, really long way. If you use too much highlighter, it looks like you just ran a 4K. So we want just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit, and you're just going to apply it right here on the top of your cheekbone. So with that being said, let me pull up and share my screen. To the step-by-step routine. Now on this, I just did a quick overview of the steps. So if you're like, okay, wait, do I do primer? Where do I do primer? Where do I do foundation? When do I color correct? I have all of this set up for you so you can go back and refresh it. And when it comes to the contour, I did everything in blue so you know exactly where your contour would go. Contour is something that is used to enhance shadows. It can be used to slim the face and give kind of like a fake facelift, which is what I love to use it for. So if you use it at a diagonal, we're going back to those lines. If you use it up like this, right above your ear, then it will give you a slimming effect. So I always find my cheekbone, which is right here, and then right where it starts, right underneath there, that's where your contour is going to go. So you can kind of touch your face and feel it. You can feel where that bone starts. Right underneath that, that's where your contour goes. You can also find it by just looking in the mirror and seeing where the shadows naturally are. And anywhere that you have a natural shadow, that's where you can apply that contour. Just make sure that you're going in that upwards diagonal stroke that we talked about. If you go straight out and follow it out, it's going to make you look wider. And we don't want to do that. We want that nice, youthful, lifted glow, right? Okay, and then your bronzer is going to go directly above that. That's going to be the brown portion on your worksheet. And it's important not to mix these two products. So a contour is going to be a dark brown with no warmth, and the bronzer is going to be what gives you sun-kissed glow. If you mix the two products, it becomes very muddy. So kind of think of the layers in a birthday cake. We're going to start at the bottom of the bone for our contour, and then you're going to take a step up, and that's where you apply the bronzer. Okay.
Hey, Kay, something happened with your speaker. So can you mute and then unmute? Just go back and forth one time there and see if it'll clear.
Absolutely.
Oh, poo. What is that symbol? Anybody know what that symbol is? You have a symbol under there, and somehow the other, once that came up, it let me okay. Now, unmute yourself again.
Okay, is that better?
No, it has some kind of, oh, remove spotlight. Why is the spotlight on? Hang on one second. Let me try.
Okay,
this.
no problem.
Okay, now speak.
Can you hear me better?
A little bit.
A little bit. Is it doing weird stuff?
Yeah, it's just vibrating. Is it vibrating for you, Carol?
I don't hear a vibration.
Oh, good. Okay, then let's go on and assume that it's
Something's going on with your computer.
That's right.
Sorry. Let me know if I start sounding weird again.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're on the bronzer. So make sure you don't combine those two things. Take a step up right here, and that's where you're going to apply your bronzer. And then right above that is where you're going to apply your blush. Now, back in the day when
I'm sorry, now I hear an echo. I did not hear it before.
Strange. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I wasn't hearing it before Sheena commented.
Okay, is that any better? Or is it still echoing?
No, yeah, it is. And someone just typed in and she's actually right. It's like feedback. And I'm getting it now, but I was not getting it 2 or 3 minutes ago.
Let me move all my stuff and see. It's an old computer. Okay, is that any better?
I'm still getting a little feedback, but it's better than it was.
Okay, give me just 1 second. Let me try something.
But I'm also getting feedback when I talk. So I don't know what the problem is.
How do I leave it? I don't know if I started something that I shouldn't have done. Jan is not muted.
Okay, now Kay or Carol speak.
Okay, how is that?
All right, yes,
Is
it's
that
much better.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, you started giving, I got some feedback from you before too, so. Do I need to start over? What was the last part we could hear clearly?
Boy. You might just briefly go over the difference between bronze, well.
We just done contour, I believe. And
Right.
Whatever the blue is, and now we're on the bronzer, I think.
Okay, perfect. So the bronzer is going to be good for any kind of sun-kissed glow. So for your daily, I would go ahead and do just a little swipe of bronzer and a little swipe of the blush. The bronzer goes directly above where your contour would go. So if you fill your bone again, it's going to be right on the bone rather than underneath it. And just make sure that you're not combining the two products because it will become muddy. And I always like to do a little bit here just to bring some of that warmth and kind of fake a tan because I am very pale. So you can just kind of trick it by doing it around the hairline here. And I do have those set up in the worksheet for you to kind of go off of too. Okay. And then let's go through blush. Blush is something that I highly recommend wearing every day. It just gives a little bit of pop and a little bit of life to everything. Now, back in the days when we were all doing Mary Kay parties, we all took those classes, I'm sure. I know I took many of them. And they would always tell me, when you apply your blush, smile, and then apply it to the apples of your cheeks, right? Yes. I see so many heads going, yes. Okay, that's totally wrong. Please get that out of your head right now. If you apply the blush right here, if I was to smile and apply them, it makes you look jolly and it makes your face look fatter than it actually is. We don't want to look bigger than we are. We want slim, we want youthful, we want glowing. So instead, I challenge you to switch it up. So your pupil is right here, right? And where we apply our bronzer is just here. you're going to apply that blush in the same diagonal direction that we've been going and just go right above that bronzer. Don't bring it all the way over here because we don't want to look jolly. Stop it right there at that pupil and you'll have that nice, pretty, uplifted, youthful look. Does that make sense? Perfect. Alrighty, now we're going to go into the highlighter. I've talked about this a couple different times, but I really want it in your brain because it does such amazing things. Take your highlighter and the last third of your eyebrow, so right about where your arch is over, pop in just a little bit of highlighter there to open and lift that eye, and a little bit here in the corner. I know I said it multiple times, but it's really important and it can make a huge, huge difference in your makeup. And then other than that, I would take a small amount with my fan brush and just put it on the very top of my cheekbone. So again, layers of the cake. We have contour, bronzer, blush, and then highlighter. Okay. Another good way of knowing where you can put your highlighter is where the sun naturally reflects off of your face. So for me and my face specifically, it's here at the cheekbones, here at the tip of my nose, the top of my lips, and then a little triangle section here above my brows. A little bit goes a long way. Again, ladies, just a tiny bit, just pop it into those areas and you just tap it in. And then once it's tapped in, then you can do your side to side sweeping motion. Okay. All right. And the last and probably most important step that I can tell you is to use your setting spray. Setting spray is life changing. This is essentially hairspray for your face. It's going to lock in all of those products all day long and make it so that you don't have to redo your makeup throughout the day. I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of time to go into the bathroom and powder my face multiple times during the day. So this eliminates that. Usually if I put a setting spray on, I can go 13, 14 hours with the same face and makeup and never have to touch it up. So amazing investment, highly recommend. Morphe, the same place I told you you can buy your brushes, they have a setting spray that is phenomenal and it's very affordable. So you could look into that while you're on that website if you like. And I have no affiliation with Morphe, so unfortunately I don't get any kickbacks for that, but you will love their products. All right, so we started the class talking about moisturizer and sunscreen and the importance of wearing your sunscreen every single day. Even if you're going to be inside, even if you're hanging out on the recliner or watching TV during the day, you want to make sure you're using that SPF because it still comes in through the windows. It can still be damaging. Even if it's a smaller amount, it still happens. So just make sure you're using that whether you do your makeup or not. And wait at least 10 minutes between applying those products and applying your foundation or any other part of your makeup. Primers and how they're essential for keeping your look on all day. Then we went through eyeshadow applications, your color correctors and concealers. We kind of ran through the foundation and how to go through your T-zone first and then out from there to avoid any harsh lines. Then we went through powders, and even if you have dry skin, you can still use them. And then we finished up with contour, bronzer, and highlight. Were there any questions or anything that I forgot to cover that you want a little clarification on? Anything that I can do to help?
All right, there are some questions in the chat box, so we'll take one at a time. Hopefully I won't miss any. The first one that I see that's new is, should older women wear matte or shiny lipstick?
Oh, that's a really good question. I prefer lip gloss on my more mature clients. I feel like it gives a really nice pop. I don't love matte lipsticks. I feel like they kind of just, they look flat. I don't know how else to explain it. So I would do something with a little bit of shimmer, a little bit of shine, just like a really light lip gloss that's just maybe your color of your lips, just a little bit more enhanced. I feel like that looks the best. in my
All right.
opinion.
Okay, and another question, will you discuss mascara and eyebrow pencil?
Oh, yes, I can absolutely do that. So what are your questions as far as the mascara goes, like how it's applied or the type you use, or what are you looking for there?
Annie had asked that question. So Annie, will you use the chat box to clarify? And while she's doing that, I'm going to go down the chat box. I'll ask another question and we'll revisit the mascara and eyebrow pencil. So let me scroll down. Should older women use cream blush or powder blush?
It it really depends on you. I prefer the powder because I feel like I have more control over the product rather than the cream. I feel like the cream can leave some splotchiness. I have seen it used successfully. For me personally, I just prefer the powders.
Okay. And then another person asks, what do you use as a highlighter?
As a highlighter, so they have, they're called illuminating highlighters. And every brand of makeup has them, NYX Cosmetics, Morphe, Pharmacy, all of them. So just look for something that says highlighter. I like to do the cream bases. If you're someone who has super pale skin, something that's just a little creamy and light there. If you're someone with a little more dark skin, golds look really, really nice. So I would do more of a champagne.
Okay. All right. And let's see. Someone is asking about eyebrows. And so I'm assuming that means what should you do with your eyebrows? I know the bushier look is in now, and maybe how do you use an eyebrow pencil? I'm having to infer what they're asking.
Okay, fair enough. So it kind of depends on the kind of eyeshadow or eyebrows you have, what product you should use. If you are one of the lucky few and you have those beautiful thicker eyebrows, you can just take an eyebrow mascara and just quickly run over them. It's just like a regular mascara. You go up and then kind of brush the bristles down. If you're someone who has to draw your eyebrows on every day with a pencil, unfortunately, I don't have a pencil with me, so we're going to use a pen. What you're going to do is you're going to start here in the corner, and you're going to draw a light line straight over until your arch. And then you're going to take and draw another line from this arch down to the end of your brow, or end of your eye. So if you look here, it matches up between my nose and the end of this. Okay. Then you're going to take and you're going to leave this spot out for now. You're going to go over to where your eyebrows start to go this way rather than up. And you're going to draw another line over until you hit that brow here, and then another line down and connect those. Once that's down, then I would take the brow pencil and I would do strokes that matched the hairs on your face. So for example, in this area, they go straight up. So I would just do very light strokes. And then here they kind of start curving and going out. So I would just follow those here and then down. It's always best to start really light, get the lightness down, and then you can build up from there. Whereas if you use a lot of pressure, you'll have harsh lines in this area. So just go nice and light and then build up, just as if you were doing a painting. Does that make sense?
Okay. And we have one more question about foundation, then the rest of them that I can see are on eyes. So someone asked, they missed the part where you were talking about the foundation brush. Do you apply the foundation directly to the brush?
Oh, that's a good question. And I didn't specify, so I apologize. I like to put my foundation on the back of my hand. Again, I have it nice and clean and sanitized. And I'll just take one dot, just like this. And then I get just a little bit of product. I still have a ton over here, and I have just this tiny amount on my brush. And that's where I'm going to start tapping it into the skin. And then I'll pick up a little bit more and then put it in the spots where I need it the most. Does that answer that question?
I think so. All right, and then back to the eyes. Someone has commented, as we all know, that lashes thin with aging. So do I continue to use mascara? And then a second part B, can you recommend a type of eyebrow pencil?
So eyebrow pencils, Benefit Cosmetics has one that is amazing. I've never found one that comes even close to it. So I highly recommend the Benefit. It is a little bit more on the pricey end. So if you're not wanting to spend $30 on an eyebrow pencil, NYX Cosmetic has one that's not too bad. You kind of have to work with it a little bit more. It's not quite as creamy, but definitely a good second option. And then I'm sorry, what was the other part of that
The
question?
other part was about lashes thinning with aging. So should I continue to use mascara, or does it damage the lashes? Or how can I keep it from damaging lashes maybe?
Yes, so the mascara should not be damaging your lashes. If you're using waterproof mascara every single day, that can definitely do a little bit of damage. But if you're using just a regular mascara, you shouldn't have an issue. I find that the biggest reason for your eyelashes falling out is how you're taking them off at night. So a lot of people will just do this and they'll just take a makeup remover wipe and they'll just go crazy and they just don't have time to really work at it. If you get either an oil or like an oily makeup remover or something like that, it's a lot gentler on the skin. And you can just really softly move that down. And then when you get to your lashes, I follow my lashes down like this rather than forcing them back and forth where they can fall out. Just really lightly do that. They also have a product that you can buy in most salons called Grande Lash MD. And that helps grow your lashes back. I've seen amazing success with that. So it's absolutely an option for anyone who wants to grow some of those back. And then I also recommend when you put your mascara on to apply it just to these lashes here, and you can leave the bottom lashes blank. That will give you an open look to your eyes.
All right, I was going to dovetail onto that question and ask about what you can do to help replenish your lashes, and you answered that. So, all right, let me scroll down. I see one more question. I have droopy eyelids. Is there a way to keep my mascara and eyeliner from smudging off onto the lids?
This is fantastic. Thank you so much for asking that question. So when I apply my eyeliner, I just apply it here and then I get it where I want. And then I take a color. So if I'm doing a black eyeliner, I'll take a black. If I'm doing brown, I'll do a brown, and I'll just tap the eyeshadow right on top of it. And that powder locks it into place. And you can just kind of bring it over. And so if you do that and then you do the beauty blender trick that I showed you where you spray the beauty blender and then you tap underneath your eyes, that will keep it in place as well.
I don't see any more questions. So last call, if you have any questions, now's the time to type them in, please. Okay, I don't see any more questions. So Kay, I tell you what, I've learned a lot. I've learned that I've done a lot of things incorrectly these last few, well, for many years. I'm sure glad that this is being recorded because I wasn't taking notes, but I'm so glad I'll be able to go back on YouTube and look at it and write some notes to myself. Gosh, we're getting some nice feedback, fantastic class, et cetera, et cetera. So you're getting some kudos.
Yay.
All right, let's everyone again, thank you, Kay, so much. Now that we're hopefully soon able to get out more and without masks, hopefully, makeup is becoming more and more relevant to us once again. So thank you so much for all these tips. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, and before we end class, just a couple of things. once again, as I mentioned earlier, NKA is run totally by volunteers. We don't exist unless we have volunteers. We want new perspectives, new ideas for classes, and new people helping us. So at the very top of your chat box, I did type in Kathy McDougall's contact information if you would like to suggest a class or volunteer for NKA. And then something new this year, just like when you go to movies, there's a preview of coming attractions. Well, we're having a preview of coming NKA attractions. So I'd like to just briefly tell you about what is coming up next week. And I'm going to have to look at my cheat sheet. Next week on Tuesday, we have a class called Estate Planning, Trust-Based Plans and Will-Based Plans. And just a brief description, this class will address trust-based plans and will-based plans, the difference between the two, and will help you decide what may be the best type of plan to meet your current needs. Again, that is our, let's see, that's the only class coming up next week. We're just getting started with our new semester. It is on Tuesday, the 21st from 11 to 12:30. And if you want to register for that, you'll go to the same CVent website where you registered for this class. And one last note, at the very end of our chat box, you will find Kay's Gmail contact information. I'm sure we will all think of many questions in about 5 minutes after the session ends. So once again, thank you, everyone. We hope to see you again at some of our other classes. And I know that I, for one, will be checking in a few days to see when this class is up on YouTube so I can watch it again and write myself some notes.
It should
Thank
be
you,
done
everyone.
later today.
Yeah,
Thank you so
great.
much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Everyone have a pleasant day. And this is it for our NKA class. You may tap leave to leave the class. Bye-bye.
That was a good class.
It was a good class.
Yeah, she did a really fine job of presenting that.
And I can't wait to go back and look at the recording.
Yes.
I gotta tell you. Step by step. Awesome. Thank you, Peggy.